Clint Eastwood and John Wayne are giants of the Western genre. In Western movies, they were both typecast. Eastwood as the brooding loner with little to say, and Wayne as the morally upright man seeking to right wrongs, keep the peace, and settle disputes. The films they made were quite different, although still within the broad Western category. Each man was critical of the other's work, with John Wayne especially finding Eastwood's films not at all to his liking. In their personal lives, they were also opposites. Wayne held conservative right-wing views, while Clint Eastwood held more liberal views, and in 1986 won election to be mayor of Carmel, California. In this video, we're going to outline the careers of both of these great actors and establish why they were so reluctant to work on films together. John Wayne. John Wayne, real name Marion Robert Morrison, was born in Iowa but moved to California where the warmer climate would be better for his father's health. John was a promising football player and secured a place at USC to study law and also play football. Unfortunately for the team, John broke his collarbone body surfing and had to give up his football career. The silent film star Tom Mix regularly attended USC football games, and as a favor to the coach, hired John as an extra and prop boy. Director John Ford used John for bit parts in a range of early movies. John was 18 at the time, and his career was to span more than 50 years of filmmaking. John was tall and with an athletic physique. It was this that caught director Raoul Walsh's eye. He cast John in his first leading role in The Big Trail, which was released in 1930. Walsh and Fox Studios head honcho Winfield Sheehan met and decided on a new name for John. They felt he needed a professional name that was snappy and uncomplicated, and chose John Wayne. The man himself was not even there when his name was decided. The Big Trail was the first film of its kind in the sound era and cost more than $2 million. Commercially, it was a flop, but it had set the standard and today is considered a classic. It also introduced John Wayne as a Western actor. He followed this with nearly 10 years of appearing in low-budget Westerns, generally referred to as horse operas or Poverty Row Westerns. John himself reckoned he had appeared in over 80 of these types of films. He became a household name after co-starring in Stagecoach with Claire Trevor. This film was released in 1939 and was an enormous success. The critics loved it because of its high production standards, and the accountants loved it because it made a large profit. One of John Wayne's biggest regrets was that he was unable to enlist in the U.S. Army during World War II. His draft was deferred several times due to Republic Pictures opposing it. He was under contract to Republic and was the only A-list actor on their books. He was able to tour U.S. bases in the South Pacific and did some undercover work for the Office of Strategic Services, later known as the CIA. He did credit his patriotism in later life to the guilt he felt for not being able to play a bigger part in the war effort. In the post-war years, John began to choose roles he wished to play, often making his choice on patriotic or moral grounds. He refused the lead in All the King's Men because he thought it promoted un-American sympathies. He also refused a role in The Gunfighter because he felt he had been treated badly in the past by Harry Cohn, Columbia's boss. Gregory Peck was handed the role. Over the next 20 years, John Wayne appeared in more than 20 John Ford-directed films. One of these was The Searchers, which many believe to be John's best film, and the role that showed his scope as an actor. Over his career, Best Actor Oscar success eluded John. He had a nomination in 1949 for The Sands of Iwo Jima, and then won the Oscar in 1969 for The Alamo. In 1976, John appeared in what was to be his last film role, the Western The Shootist. He developed stomach cancer and died from it in 1979. While he divided critics during his long career, John was considered by many to be a master of his craft. Clint Eastwood. Born in 1930 in California, Clint Eastwood had a privileged childhood, as he came from a fairly well-to-do family. He was no academic, partly because he was having too good a time away from school in his teens. He was sometimes in trouble for pranks and left school possibly without graduating. He held a variety of jobs as a teen, including paperboy, golf caddy, and lifeguard. At 21, he was drafted into the Army during the Korean War, but served out his time in Fort Ord, California. At one point, he begged a lift on a Douglas AD bomber that was returning to base from Seattle. The plane ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean, and Clint and the pilot had a 2-mile swim back to shore. While at Fort Ord, Clint was put in touch with director Arthur Lubin, who auditioned him on behalf of the Universal International Film Company. There followed a number of years where he only managed to get minor roles on TV and low-budget films. His big break came in 1958 when he was cast in the TV series Rawhide as Rowdy Yates. Rawhide ran from 1959 to 1965 and established Clint as a household name. He found the role of Rowdy, who was a real goody-goody character, rather limiting. He jumped at the chance to act in A Fistful of Dollars when it was offered. This was the first of Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns, in which Clint created the character of the man with no name. He played the same character in For a Few Dollars More and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Initially released in Italy, then the rest of Europe, the films were not released in the US until 1967. The critics were disparaging in their reviews of the films. Today, they're considered classics, but for many critics, they were too far removed from the run-of-the-mill westerns they were used to reviewing. In 1968, Clint starred in Hang 'em High, a revenge western which did gain the approval of the critics. He followed this success with a number of non-western films like Coogan's Bluff and Where Eagles Dare, before taking the lead in Dirty Harry, which is probably his most iconic role. Clint's career continued with a mix of westerns and non-westerns, including Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, The Outlaw Josie Wales, and 4 more Dirty Harry films. In 1992, Unforgiven was released, which was directed by Clint. It garnered 9 Oscar nominations and won 4. Clint took Best Director and the film took Best Picture. Another critical success was The Bridges of Madison County in 1995, alongside Meryl Streep. In 2003, Mystic River, which Clint directed, earned 2 Oscars and a nomination for Clint as Best Director. 2004 brought more success with $1 Million Baby, which he also directed. It won 4 Oscars, including Best Director and Best Picture. Clint, at 74, became the oldest director with 2 Oscars for Best Director. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And stay tuned to hear about the beef between John Wayne and Clint Eastwood. Why John Wayne and Clint Eastwood never acted together. Both men are classed as Hollywood megastars. Both are closely linked with westerns, although they both acted in thrillers, action movies, and romantic films too. So why did the two greats not see eye to eye? It's been suggested that John Wayne felt threatened by Eastwood. Clint represented a changing landscape in westerns. John felt secure in the types of roles he was playing, and when the spaghetti westerns came along, it marked a major departure from that style. Wayne actually turned down the opportunity to play Dirty Harry. At one point, it seemed John Wayne was just behind the curve and struggling to catch the new mood in Hollywood. In response to Dirty Harry, he made McHugh, and in response to Coogan's Bluff, he made Brannigan. Neither was particularly successful. Maybe this attempt at copying Clint's successful films was a sign he was jealous of the younger actor. In 1973, Clint wrote to John and offered him a role in High Plains Drifter. Wayne rejected the offer as he felt the film did not represent the American West as it had really been. Later, Clint suggested the rejection came because John was making a different Western with Don Siegel at the time. In High Plains Drifter, Wayne saw an attempt to degrade both the American West and the Western movie. He just couldn't accept that the kind of behavior represented in the film would have occurred in the real Old West. In 1973, when Clint was preparing to film The Hostiles with Larry Cohn, he felt it would be a good idea to ask John to play one of the leads. John said no, although he didn't give a reason. Clint even went to the length of changing studios in an attempt to get John to change his mind, but no luck. John just replied with a critique of Clint's earlier films. This was the nearest they ever got to starring in the same movie. John Wayne knew Clint Eastwood would likely become the greater star. He was not one to wish the upstart well, but resented his success. Eastwood certainly eclipsed Wayne as a director, although much of his success came after Wayne's death in 1979. John Wayne held right-wing political views. He also expressed racist views and tried to justify the grabbing of Indian land in the 19th century. He was a staunch Republican. Clint, on the other hand, held more mainstream views. He supported both Republican and Democrat candidates based on their personal qualities. He also held public office from 1986 to 88 as mayor of Carmel, California. It seems John Wayne and Clint Eastwood's rivalry was mostly because of Wayne disliking Eastwood's approach to the Old West in his movies. Wayne clearly resented the rise of Eastwood as a star and was perhaps jealous. Now we'd like to hear from you. Let us know in the comments section whether you like John Wayne better or Clint Eastwood. And before you go, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Facts Verse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.